I'm going to show you guys how to sharpen a knife. Here I've got a set of oil stones, and I've got 3 different grits. So I've got the very coarse grit, a medium, and a fine. So this basically just removes, it's good for getting an edge on it. Actually, I had to do quite a bit of work on this knife. It was practically flat up front. It was like a butter knife. So I spent a decent amount of time starting an edge on there, and I'm just going to work on it a bit more on the coarse grit. Put a bit of oil. Now, since the stones are small and that there's a really big tang on this knife, instead of passing it like this when it's on the ground, I'm going to hold the knife and I'm going to pass the stone on the blade. That way I can get a continuous stroke to keep the edge even. Now I start at the tip and I don't stop until I actually hit it's kind of like a ridge there. And you can kind of hear it when you've got it right. And you try to do the same amount of strokes on one side as you would the other. And check to make sure that it hasn't gone dry. And this paste that you kind of see, you kind of want that. That's very abrasive and helps things along. So you keep doing that until you feel that the edge is even. Because this isn't going to sharpen it much, it's just grinding off the metal to a point. It's the medium grit one that's going to do the most of the work. And then at the end you just do the fine grit just to polish it up a bit. So I'll keep doing that on the rough grit. I'll come back. So I've got a good even edge on there, so I'm just going to clean off all the sludge. And I'm going to start with the medium grit. It takes a little while. When you start at first, your stone is going to really absorb a lot of oil. You kind of see it soaking in. That's okay. You just keep adding oil, and eventually it'll reach a saturation point and it'll start making the sludge. So same thing. You're gonna hear it sounds different. It makes a lower pitched grinding noise. And you'll see the polishing stone will make an even different sound. You'll feel it glide over your blade easier too. There'll be less resistance, less drag. So now, you can imagine it that at first you're kind of getting your point like this, and each time you get a finer and finer grit, you're getting those burrs, microscopic burrs, to line up. And actually, if I had a steel, I would get them perfectly aligned. But I don't have one, so I'm just going to have to go with the polishing grit. I need some more oil. So now, I'm actually going to start the polishing process with the medium grit stone. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting it on the knife and just back and forth. I'm not lifting it up. I'm going right to as close as I can to the edge without running off, and going all the way to the edge here. Just continuous motion, and you can see how shiny it's getting the edge. And do the other side. Now the angle that you want, I should have said this way at the beginning, is imagine if you had a penny propping up the stone. And you just keep that angle. You always try to keep as close to the same angle as possible. That way you're always working on the edge and you're not, you know, changing that. That's pretty good. I think I'm going to clean it up and I'm going to start on the polishing stone. So now onto the polishing stone, and this one runs super smooth on the blade. You'll feel it. And what this is doing is just getting all the little burrs out of the way. And just like as we were doing with the coarse medium stone, and you'll feel where it's smooth and where it's not, because it'll catch a bit where it's a little more rough. And you just keep doing that. And sometimes once you get past this stage, you'll feel that it's not quite as sharp as you want. You go back to the medium one and you do some more passes on that. I find this is a really good skill to learn, as I mean, sure, you can go and bring your knife to Saint-Rasoir and they'll put it on an industrial grinder. But after doing that a few times, you'll notice your blades start to disappear. And, you know, if you have a good knife, you know, and the blade starts getting thinner and thinner and thinner, you know, kind of sad. Now, I don't know much about this brand of knife. This is a buck knife. It says 119X. It's a knife that my dad lent me for my camping trip. And when I inspected it, it was in very sad shape. Like I said, here it was all bashed in. It was duller than a butter knife. And here it was all wobbly. And you can kind of still see a little bit. I've got most of it out. So, let's finish this up and the knife should be ready to go. I find this is a very hard metal, though. I have more experience sharpening kitchen knives with stones, and I have had some Sinelli brand ones, and they were a real pain in the butt to sharpen with the stones, because the composition of the metal was really hard, so it didn't grind so well. I also have a set of Victorinox, and those are really nice. They keep their edge decently long, and they're not too laborious to sharpen. And I'm finding this is worse than my Sinelli. But hopefully, you know, other than that, it's like a really, really strong knife. Like, I could probably split wood with this without doing the knife too much damage. Oh, that side's nice. Basically, when you don't feel the blade catching, I think you're good to go. Yeah. And that's how you sharpen a knife. You just clean it up. I'm probably going to give it a nice bath in some hot soapy water, because all the oil is all over the handle, all over the blade. I mean, it'll be good for rest, but not so good if you want a good strong grip. So, that's how you sharpen a knife.